Good evening. My name is Desiree Chen. I'm Senior Director for Communications and External Relations here at Elmhurst University. Thank you for joining us for this evening's program, Chicago Dish, a Chef's Roundtable, with Rick Bayless, Stephanie Izard, Beverly Kim, and moderator Monica Ang. Flash photography, recording, and live streaming are not permitted at tonight's event. However, in partnership with the City of Elmhurst, this event will be recorded and will be available to view on Elmhurst TV, the city's YouTube channel. Our thanks to Phi Mu Sorority for conducting a food drive this evening to benefit the Elmhurst Yorkfield Food Pantry. And our thanks to those of you who brought donations for the collection box. Now, please, if you would make sure your cell phones are turned off or turned to vibrate. And now it's my pleasure to introduce the president of Elmhurst University, Dr. Troy Van Aken. Thank you.
Well, it's my pleasure to welcome you to Elmhurst University, and it's great to see so many people here this evening. In so many ways, we're off to an unprecedented start to this fall term, and tonight we'll continue that unprecedented nature. Events like this reaffirm the Elmhurst University commitment to thought-provoking events on some of the most important topics in society today. The theme for this year's cultural season is the legacy we live, doing well, doing good, investing in the future. It highlights philanthropic impact and building a culture of generosity and hope. Tonight's speakers certainly reflect that theme, and we're really looking forward to hearing them shortly. Throughout the 150 year of Elmhurst University, we've been fortunate to know individuals who are passionate about sustaining the success of events like this. One of these is Roland Quest, the man this lecture series honors. The Roland Quest Lecture Series was established at then Elmhurst College in 1996 and quickly became an enormously popular series, celebrating innovation and creativity. It honors Elmhurst alumnus Roland Quest, class of 1936, a former McDonnell Douglas engineer who performed design work on the original space shuttle. Mr. Quest was also a boat designer and owner of the Quest Marine Company. Sadly, he passed away in 1993. And now it's my privilege to have Desiree come back up and introduce tonight's speakers.
Before I introduce tonight's speakers, I'd just like to mention a couple of logistical items. First, after the chef's conversation, our speakers will be answering a few questions from the audience. So at that time, anyone with a question is asked to line up at the microphone stand right over there. And if the line gets long, if you could please line up going out the door, because it helps to keep from blocking people's view. And then second, after the talk, the chefs will be signing their cookbooks. So they'll be seated at the table right here in the front. And if you would please line up down the center aisle for that, and cookbooks will continue to be sold, available for purchase in the lobby after the lecture. And now it's my pleasure to introduce tonight's guests. Chefs Rick Bayless, Stephanie Izard, and Beverly Kim are recognized around the country and around the world for their critically acclaimed restaurants and culinary prowess on competition series like Top Chef. They've also used their fame, passion, and influence to advocate for a range of worthy causes. Rick Bayless is the owner of several restaurants, including Frontera Grill, Topolobampo, and Tortas Frontera inside O'Hare International Airport. He also is known for winning the title of Bravo's Top Chef Masters and has a public television series, Mexico, One Plate at a Time, that's broadcast from coast to coast. He established the Frontera Farmers Foundation to support small Midwestern farms, the Frontera Scholarship for Mexican-American students in Chicago, and Impact Culinary Training, a restaurant job readiness program on Chicago's west side. The government of Mexico has awarded Bayless the Mexican Order of the Aztec Eagle, the highest decoration given to foreigners whose work has benefited Mexico and its people. Stephanie Izard is the executive chef and owner of several Chicago restaurants, including Girl and the Goat and Duck Duck Goat, as well as a bakery and 2 Los Angeles restaurants. She's a 2013 James Beard Best Chef Great Lakes recipient, won Iron Chef in 2017, and Top Chef in 2008, becoming the first woman to win that title. In 2020, she became board chair at Equality Should Be Normal, a group that works to eradicate anti-Black racism by providing educational opportunities and aiding people in need. Beverly Kim is a James Beard Award-winning chef and restaurateur who was one of the toughest competitors on Top Chef in 2011, when that season filmed in Texas. She co-owns Michelin-starred restaurant Parachute and Wherewithall in Chicago. During the pandemic, she started a nonprofit organization called The Abundance Setting to address gender inequality in the culinary and hospitality fields. The Chicago Tribune awarded The Abundance Setting the Best New Industry Resource of 2020, and her leadership is featured in the October 2021 issue of Bon Appetit magazine. And our moderator this evening is Monica Eng. Monica is a veteran Chicago journalist who covers food, health, and culture, as well as news and other topics. She's currently one of 2 senior reporters at Axios Chicago, and before that, she was a writer and editor at the Chicago Sun-Times, the Chicago Tribune, and WBEZ Radio. Now let's welcome Beverly Kim, Stephanie Izard, Rick Bayless, and Monica Eng.
Thank you for that lovely introduction, Desiree. And thank you, everyone, for coming out tonight. It's like a full church. This is so amazing. We were talking about, one of us is a Presbyterian, Methodist, Congregationalist, and so I'd like to say, take out your red hymnal and turn to 126, and we're going to sing the benediction. Okay, we won't. But we will get started. You don't want to hear from me. You want to hear from these guys. So let's get started with how you guys got into the culinary field and became gigantic stars. Rick, you want to start?
I was born into the restaurant world and literally grew up in a restaurant. It was a barbecue restaurant in Oklahoma City. Then I fell in love with cultural studies, specifically in Mexico, and kind of went away from that. I didn't really want to inherit my parents' restaurant, so I decided I was going to go a different direction. I went to college and studied Spanish language, literature, and Latin American studies, then graduate school and studied anthropology and linguistics, and then sort of when I was working on my PhD dissertation, decided that my heart was really in food, and decided to take a year off. It was a really long year. It's still going on. A year off from my PhD work, and I started teaching cooking, and I opened a small catering business, and then the rest of it is sort of history, because I moved to Mexico to learn the cuisine better, because I decided that really what I was interested in was the relationship between culture and food more than language and food, which is what I was studying in graduate school. And spent 5 years in Mexico, just going to every state in the Mexican Republic and learning from local cooks, because I grew up in barbecue. I knew what regional food was, and Mexico has so much regional food. So I just wanted to capture that, and that came out in our first book, which was published on the exact same day we opened Frontera Grill in 1987. And then we just kept trying to reflect different aspects of Mexican culture and its culinary culture in the different restaurants that we've opened since that time.
All right, Stephanie?
That's amazing. I love listening to that. My mom was an amazing cook. I think chefs are either chefs because their mom didn't cook and so they had to fend for themselves, or their mom was an amazing cook. And I'm very fortunate that my mom was an amazing cook. Every Sunday we used to look through all of her recipes, and we would choose the dishes we were going to have for the week and put it on the refrigerator so my friends could come over and pick which day they wanted to come over. My friend Sue always used to come over. We would have, it's like Thursday nights roast beef and Yorkshire pudding night, and she would come over and my dad's like, you got to make some extra Yorkshire pudding. Sue eats a lot of it. But it was fun. My mom always cooked things from all over the world, and it's funny looking back. She used to make mushu with her own mandarin pancakes, and I still use that recipe for mandarin pancakes at our Chinese-inspired restaurant today. So a lot of things pulled from my childhood into my restaurants now. I don't think I ever thought I was going to go into the restaurant industry. I went to University of Michigan and just kind of, go blue, woo, Just went to football games and had fun, and I was like, why are you guys going to class? But my dad suggested, you should go to culinary school. You always loved cooking. And from the moment that I walked into culinary school, I was like, I found my people. I'm so excited to be here. So I think you look back at your childhood, and I think after I was a swimmer, and so I was hungry all the time, and I would have a bag of frozen French fries as a light afternoon snack, but I would garnish my plate of French fries. Like, I look back at these things, and I'm like, who garnishes their French fries when they're like 8 years old? So I think looking back how I was as a child, I could see myself becoming this, but I didn't realize it until I got to culinary school.
Beverly?
That's so fun. I feel like we have similarities, but also different stories, which is really cool. So I actually grew up in Downers Grove, near this area, Elmhurst. I went to piano in Elmhurst, so this feels really home to me. I was the last of 4 daughters in a Korean immigrant family, and actually my mom didn't have one cookbook. Seriously, but every day she would cook everything from her heart and from her memory from what Korea was. And Korean food and what she cooked at home was the center of our family because we had a lot of, like just miscommunication, not speaking the language. It was home to me. Her food to me was healing. It was language of love. And I didn't realize how much as a last daughter, I had become the sous chef for my mom, and we had 3 refrigerators at home. I don't know if everyone had 3 refrigerators at home, but we did. One was for rotational kimchis and pickles. One had some dried umami, the umami fridge, and then the upstairs kitchen, and it would be like, Beverly, go get the kimchi, and I'd go run down. And, she taught me how to slice scallions really, really thin. And there was just always attention to detail to the food. And I loved giving through food. I didn't have allowance, but I gave my friends brownies or cakes, And one day, I was 16, my sister Leanne, who's 9 years older, she said, you should think about being a chef. And I was like, our family has never gone out to eat, really. Besides like a steakhouse here and there. So I took I don't know if you guys remember Barnes & Nobles in the Ford Plaza Center in Downers Grove. And I bought a book. It was called The Who's Who of the James Beard in America. And I wanted to know, call me crazy, what if I wrote some famous chefs in Chicago, can I shadow you? And my sister said, yeah, do it. So we crafted a letter to several chefs in the city and said, can I shadow you? And I shadowed Roland from Le Francais, and one of them was Sarah Stegner from Ritz-Carlton Hotel, who today is a founding member of the nonprofit organization, The Abundance Setting. Today, we're still friends, and I worked for her. And so the one thread that I realized staging and shadowing for the chefs was, the thread was, you'll never work a day in your life. I didn't want to ever work a day in my life. This is fulfillment. This is passion. And if you don't ever want to work a day in your life, this is a good career for you.
If you like cooking.
Right.
Yeah. So all of you own multiple successful restaurants. And COVID has been really tough on the dining industry. Can you tell me what challenges you faced and what you're still facing in the wake of it as the recovery is happening?
I think it's interesting because Rick and I, of course, I think every chef when they get together now talks about still their recovery from COVID, and I don't think, it's not a recovery from it, it's that the world in the restaurant community, I mean, the whole world has changed, but in the restaurant world in particular, we don't approach things the same. Our guests aren't the same. The people that work in our restaurants aren't the same. It's just taking a new approach, a new beginning, and I think that throughout COVID, we had to learn ways to change. We had to learn ways to make our menus a little smaller, run things a little bit leaner, and it's taking those learnings and trying to apply them now and kind of having it be a new beginning. So it's very hard to look at COVID for any of us and to say there's good things that came out of it, but honestly, in the restaurant industry, I think it gave everybody a moment to stop and say, okay, it's okay to do things differently. I know Rick was saying this, he's been doing some of the same things for 30 years. We've been doing, at Girl and the Goat, we've been open 12 years now. We've been doing the same thing, well, we're still going to do the green beans forever, but we've been doing some of the same things like over and over again for that many years. It's okay to not have just the butchers do that. You can have people on the prep team go and butcher the chicken. You can just change the way you've been doing things. And I think it was an awakening moment for that. So though there's still going to be challenges, the supply chain's still crazy and prices went up and labor's gone up and all these things, I think the reflection on the restaurant industry during COVID was really good to kind of look and see how we could just change as an industry. And I'm trying to look at the positives of good things that have come out of it, and I think there are a lot of good things to see.
I would say that we are grateful to have gone through COVID. We would never like to go through it again, but we are grateful for all the things that we learned, and I can echo everything that Stephanie said, because we're not, people ask me all the time, are you guys back to normal? And I said, there is no normal yet. We're still trying to figure out what our new normal is going to be. And to echo what Stephanie said about the guests in our restaurant are different, our staff is different, what people are expecting, whether it's guests or staff, is really different after COVID. And I think that if we try to rush back in and say, let's just make it like it used to be, that we are, first of all, will fail. Secondly, we will not use all of the learnings that we could possibly bring from COVID, and that's why I said that I'm grateful to have gone through it, because never in my life have I ever been able just to stop and say, okay, what do we, and this was a conversation that we had all the time in our restaurants, we would say, what do we want it to be? What's going to be right for us here? We changed the way that we paid everybody. We changed the things that we expected from people. We gave them things that we had wanted to give them in the past, but just couldn't figure out a way to do it. Well, we were able to recreate ourselves and make the restaurants that we wanted to be part of. And granted, like a lot of us, we sort of grew up in the restaurant business, so you kind of take it for what it is. We adopt everything that people tell us that it should be. But COVID gave us the opportunity to stop and say, what do we want it to be? So we were able to change a whole lot of things. You would come in and, like Stephanie said, you would see that the menu's smaller and that people are doing different things. And it's not exactly the same restaurant experience that you may have had. We tell you that it's going to be a great restaurant experience, but it's not going to be the exact same restaurant experience, because we are not the exact same people that we used to be. So I feel like that we have no idea how it's going to come out because we're not finished with this project, but it actually is a wonderful moment for us to see how it's going to develop and to watch that and to shepherd that along.
Yeah, I echo everything you both have said. I think living through the pandemic and still surviving and holding to our restaurants, that alone showed a willpower of never giving up and persistence and made us stronger. We have had to go. 20%
of the restaurants went out of business during COVID, just to let you know the figures, because it's enormous.
I think there was a lot of not knowing what was going to happen next, and you could only go one day at a time. I still think we go at that pace right now. And there has been a lot of streamlining, and I came back with a smaller menu. There is a labor shortage, it's for real. I don't know where they went. Maybe they went to other industries. We're trying to figure out where did they go. And just a different kind of climate. You might go through book 4 interviews and only one shows up, and there's no it's a no call, no show.
That's good if one shows up.
And that's actually a good percentage. As much as we want to fill up to our capacity we used to, we just can't. And then so we have to slow down kind of our capacity in order to give the service that we want, which means all across the board, it is a struggle, but I always believe that struggles are there to make you creative, and if you don't see that as an opportunity, you're gonna miss a chance. So I think COVID did help us as chefs, as a community, come together a lot more and collaborate a lot more and open up more. We reached out more to our community efforts in cooking for Ukraine, cooking for different causes, and hopefully we're also, yeah, like he said, we're not completely recovered. Things are not normal, and you know, if you're Blockbuster's video and you only have one way idea of how to get videos to your community, you're going to go out of business. So it's constantly thinking about, like, don't be Blockbuster. You have to, like, you have to change. You know, you have to adapt, and you know, it's made us, like you said, reevaluate. It was kind of like an economic disaster, like almost as if a hurricane came in, but it's more like an economic hurricane. And even though our buildings are still standing, it did have a huge effect on morale, anxiety, just so many like layers. But the resetting and the redesigning, like how can we make, like I have a chance to redesign this. So we did the same thing, is like we have a kind of a broken template for the restaurant industry. We are working on that, changing that, eliminating sub-minimum wage. Martin Luther King spoke here, and also he was fighting the same things in 1966 that we're fighting now. And so this is a good opportunity to do that, and you know, just, you know, take our time to see how we can reset better for our workers and ourselves, even, you know, for our own families. So.
Yeah, well said. Yeah, I'm looking always at office occupancy figures, and it looks like downtown Chicago is around 46 to 48%. So, you know, if you're counting on downtown lunch business, that's still way down. And here's the tip. When people are given the choice, okay, you have to come into the office 2 days a week, they do not choose Friday. So if you want to get into your favorite restaurant at lunch downtown, go on Friday, because chances are you will, and you'll be able to get a parking space, and there will be no traffic. But one thing that I'm just struck by is, because, you know, I cover these, you know, chefs cook for Ukraine, chefs cook for Tigray, and even as you guys are hurting, even as you're like desperate for some help and for the customers to come back, you're still giving back. And people come to you all the time, hey, another disaster happened, can you help? And I'm just always like, you know, a tear comes to my eyes, and like, the chefs came to the rescue again, and Chicago chefs especially. And all of you have these, you know, on top of being parents and having multiple restaurants, you also do advocacy work. And so can you each tell me about the particular advocacy work projects you do and why?
I'll start. So COVID shook us up, and actually the bright side of that slowed down my pace so I could actually start on something I always wanted to work on, which was the support network and creating a community for working mothers in the culinary industry. Is a kind of a point of pain for me.
Can I just say, she won't say it, Beverly's the mother of 3 very active boys under 12.
Yes. We have a gender disparity in the industry, and I never use that like I'm a woman so I can't succeed. However, there are systemic issues that relate to why women drop out of this industry, and that's what we like to focus on. The lack of childcare, or the cost of childcare, you know, the lack of parental leave in our society, and how can we even squeeze that out of a restaurant with some small margins, healthcare benefits, and the general culture that's pretty macho, and we're trying to address that, and it gave me this opportunity because it's something I really, really care about. You know, having gone through that for my son and experiencing the pain points of a lot of people telling me, why don't you just, like, as soon as I had a child, they're like, are you really gonna be a chef? And, you know, I want this I want it to not have to be like a choice for women. And there's so much to gain from more women leadership. So the statistics say that 54% of 54% of culinary graduates are women. That's a lot. But only maybe 7% make it to independent restaurants to the leadership level of executive chef or ownership. So there's a lot of lack of pathway, and I'm telling you that by giving a system and a pathway, even if you're not wanting to have children, it does affect women. Because why? Because women, they see you, they hire you, immediately there's a bias there, like, oh, she might be a liability because one day she's gonna get married, she's gonna have kids. So we have to think about why, as women and our community and our children, why we all need to care about this issue. And it was really cool, and actually Stephanie was one of our mentees on this program. We started a meal mentorship program where we paired chefs with working moms in the culinary field and fed their families for 12 weeks and gave them exposure and access to mentorship, and that was really powerful. And Chef, you spoke on a lot of our conversations and panels of how are we gonna approach this, how are we gonna change this? And I think that was a point of pain for me, and I just think it's a systemic issue. So we need to come up with community-oriented solutions, but also advocate for some policy issues. So.
For sure, thanks.
I mean, thank you so much for everything you've been doing, especially as a working mom. I have huge appreciation for it, and I know that all of the women in my kitchen too, so thank you. I have just been working with a number of different organizations over the years. I think we were just having a conversation about it the other day, that it's important to pick some of the organizations that I truly feel connected to and feel like we can make a difference in with some of those. So World Central Kitchen is one that we've had a huge focus on. Jose Andres is an amazing chef in our industry, helping support whenever something happens in any country, whether it's Puerto Rico or Ukraine, just sending in a team to really help out. And what's amazing as a chef is that we can do what we love to do, which is cooking, and raise money. So I'm doing a dinner tomorrow night with Joe Flam and my friend Shota from Seattle. We had 2 different families, each paid $35,000 for us to go cook in their home.
Holy moly.
For money to raise money for
$35,000.
World Central Kitchen. So, and it's from a post on social media. So it's incredible. People want to support different organizations. People want to have chefs come cook in their house and have wine with them. And it's fun for us too. So, but we can do what we love and be able to raise money for great organizations like that. So if I had it in me to start my own amazing organization, I would love that, but I found some different ones to work with. During the pandemic, I worked with an organization called Equality Should Be Normal. I met an amazing gentleman who had started the organization and was just helping different folks in the south side of Chicago be able to sort of find their way, be able to know that they could finish high school, that they can have help getting into different universities, and just really creating a safe space where they could come and have different resources. And it was really amazing to just be part of the start of an organization and see all that it takes to get it from the ground up and be able to create that safe space. Common Threads is another organization that a lot of us have been working with over the years, and I know Rick talks so much about, it's so important to celebrate the common thread that is among all of us is food. No matter what background you come from, we all eat. And so having children learn about cuisines from around the world at a young age and be able to bring that back to their families and share that with their families and learn about healthy eating. I just did a cook-off with some other top chefs in LA the other day for Common Threads, and I got to cook with the cutest high school kid, and you won. It was great. But we cooked a dish from North Africa that I had never cooked before, and it was so fun because I ended up, the sauce that we made had cinnamon and it had chilies. It was so amazing. I was just talking to my friend Elaine about it today, but taking that dish, and now it's actually turned into a sauce on one of our menus because I learned through this Common Threads event this new flavors that I hadn't thought to put together. So it's such an important thing to learn about different cuisines, and I've always loved that organization too.
I feel incredibly blessed to be a Chicago chef because our chef community is very open to each other and to the causes that some of us are out there raising money for. We're a very hospitable group of people, and we like each other. And I think that is really amazing because I've been at events, say in New York City, where chefs are just kind of like, they're standoffish to one another. And it's just fabulous to be part of this group of chefs Plus, I feel like that we have just a great representation in the city of Chicago of people from different backgrounds, different genders. We're a very welcoming group of chefs. I'm one of those chefs that just looks out there and sees that there's a need and wants to figure out a way to solve that problem that's right in front of me. And that's the way we started 18 years ago. We started the Frontera Farmer Foundation because we wanted the few farms that we were working with to be able to produce more stuff. And so actually that was about 20 years ago. But we would say to them, it's like, no, we need double what you've got. And they would say, we don't have any infrastructure to make double, okay? And so I would say, what do you need? And they'd say, oh, I need a watering system, I need a new tractor, I need a new hoop house, whatever. And I said, okay, so look, if we could figure out a way to lend you that money so that you could get the equipment that you need, we'll give you a no-interest loan. We just made this rule that you had to pay it back in a year, and that you could pay it back in product to us. So if we needed you to grow spinach, then you needed a hoop house to grow that spinach in, then you could just pay us back in spinach. And that went on for a number of years, and then we decided to turn that into a not-for-profit. And then over the last 18 years, we have given these are really, it's hard for most people to figure this out, but it's like we give what would be called like micro grants, actually. They're $10,000 to $12,000. And a lot of people say that's like pocket change for people, except that it's not for a farmer. One of the farmers we work with said, oh no, it would take us 5 years to save $10,000 to invest in that piece of equipment. So we give away, well, over the last 18 years, we have invested in about 200 farms and given away about $3 million in these micro loans. So we have really touched a lot of small family farms in the Midwest to help make them more profitable and more productive, because that's our goal. And it has really changed the landscape of local agricultural economy. So that was just us saying, we want more of your stuff. How can we help you to produce more stuff? And then, of course, it's gotten a lot bigger. And I will say that when we started our scholarship program, it was the same thing. It was like, I'm not getting any Mexican-American young chefs coming in here with the capability of being a sous chef. I said, we're not seeing anybody coming with a culinary education, a culinary school education. And so we started that because I said, first of all, if they're Mexican-Americans, they probably know what their grandmother's cooking's like, but they don't know what the cooking of sort of top restaurants in Mexico City are like. So we're going to send them to the best culinary school in Chicago, and then we're going to take them to Mexico on a staff trip so that they can have the opportunity to get to know the culture in a different way than just their home way. And so we just were turning out one after another of these culinary school graduates that could rise to run kitchens all over the city, mostly is what we were looking for, because we just didn't see enough representation of Mexican-American kids in that. When we started, the newest program that we started is the restaurant readiness program that we do on the west side of Chicago, because I just kept saying, it's like, there's all these young people on the west side of Chicago that have no opportunity. Their education in the public schools, and everybody will probably say this, is less than if you were in another section of Chicago. And they're kids that grow up with not thinking they're going to ever be able to have the opportunities to rise up. And I said, you give me those students for 8 weeks, I can train them to be able to hold their own in any kitchen in Chicago. And then we're going to get Chicago chefs, some of the best chefs in the country, to come in and just spend a morning with them and tell their story. People that look, people, all kinds of people, so that everyone in this program actually sees somebody that looks like them telling their story, and then teaches them a 2-hour class. And I say after that 8 weeks of time, we give them a 4-week internship in one of those great chefs' kitchens. And at the end of it, they get 100% of the students get offered jobs because we have believed in them. We've offered them respect. We've offered them a solid education. It's not the same thing as going 2 years to culinary school. Yes, I know that. But what we teach them is the respect for our profession and the basic skills that they need to really thrive in that. And I will tell you, we have hired a bunch of them through the years now, and they're like some of our best people, our best cooks. And it's just because they didn't have the opportunity to actually if they had come to our back door, we wouldn't have hired them, okay? But when they come with this education, we love having them in our kitchens. And now with the labor shortage, it's really great. We can't turn out enough of these students, but we also don't turn out a lot of students. It's 16 students at a time. We hold their hands every day. We not only teach them the job readiness skills, but we teach them what we call the emotional intelligence skills to thrive in a workplace, because most of them have never had that experience of working in a place like that. So we got to actually teach them how to get along with others because they're going to be in, restaurant kitchens are like little pressure cookers, because we all have to be not like the bear, okay? But it's like, but they are pressure cookers because, we got a dining room full of people, and when the chef says, please, go to the walk-in, get some cilantro right now, chop it up, you have to say, yes, chef. You can't say, why? You can't, it's like you have to be willing to be part of the team. And a lot of these students have never come through anything that they were part of a team. And so we have to teach them how to do that kind of thing. And so that's my new thing. It's like I just want to see the underserved, the disenfranchised sections of Chicago have that kind of program. So now we've got it going on the west side of Chicago. I want to open another branch of it on the south side of Chicago. I just think that there's so much opportunity to bring equality to the different neighborhoods of Chicago that are very unequal right now. So, but we couldn't do it without these people that are so generous to offer time to come and work with students or bring students into their restaurants as interns and to hold their hands. It's a different kind of internship than if they came from the Culinary Institute of America. It's a prop them up and give them the courage to really thrive in this environment. But to me, that's why I love being in Chicago, because I had an idea for this program, but I couldn't do it without the great chefs of Chicago saying, yeah, let's do it together.
Can we get an amen in here? Well, thank all three of you. I mean, I'm in awe that you can run these restaurants, have kids and grandkids, and then start these programs and work on these programs. And that brings me to my next question, what keeps you going? What keeps you inspired to do all this?
You start.
You
got lots going on in two very far apart cities right now.
I do. The chefs we're all a little bit crazy, I think there's a funny thing. There's almost an addiction to opening restaurants and to doing new things and to encouraging new people. And part of opening new restaurants is sometimes you have so many amazing people on your team that you've taken the time to invest in, that you've grown from. We have this one kid, Brandon, started off as a dishwasher, he didn't know what an oyster was. And now he's one of our sous chefs at Cabra, who's cleaning fish and helping run the kitchen. Amazing stories like that. Once he gets to being one of our head chefs, then what's he gonna do? I guess we'll open another restaurant so he can open that. So you have these amazing people that work with you that they want continued growth and opportunity, and so you almost feel like you should just keep opening restaurants so they have places to go so that you don't lose them. But also for yourself, I think opening a restaurant is one of the most amazing experiences you can possibly have and one of the hardest ones at the same time. I think all of my restaurants, I have 7 restaurants right now, each one that I've opened, it's like I remember all these amazing moments about it, and I've blocked all the terrible things out of memory. But then they come back out again when you open the next restaurant, and you're like, why did I do this again? Because leading up to it, and picking out the plates, designing a menu, finding all these amazing people to train, all of that's so amazing. And then the first couple weeks is just No, the first couple months.
Months, yes.
The first 6 months. It's terrible. It's terrible. And you're like, why did I do this? But then you kind of forget that when you start seeing all of the happy guests come in and all of the amazing people on your teams that are having such a great time working together. And you've created you've grown your world, you've grown your environment to have more people on it. Right now I think we have about 500 people that work in the GOAT restaurants. And they're all truly amazing. And some people have worked there since day one, over 12 years ago. And I think I'll say right now, and like Elaine, who works with me up there, she's up there, I'll say, never opening another restaurant again. She's like, yeah, you are. I know you're gonna. Because it's something that it just kind of keeps going because it's fun. And I think you look around at different chefs around you who are doing amazing things, and you're like, oh, that sounds like a great idea. I want to do that. I want to try doing that. I think we all support each other and push each other in a great way that keeps our industry growing. And it's also just fun to challenge yourself. I think once you get a restaurant going, and it feels like everybody there is doing their thing, you're like, oh, I feel like I'm not needed here anymore as much as I used to be on the first day. Maybe I'll go do something else. So it's a strange addiction. I shall not open more. But we'll find other things to do. I think we all like being busy. That's why we're in this industry. We like being challenged. We like doing fun new things and creating environments and creating hopefully fun experiences for a lot of folks like you.
I will say that we all love creating things, and there's nothing more exciting than creating a new concept. And you imagine what the restaurant's going to look like, what the menu's going to be like, all filled with people having a great time, and you forget all of the hard parts that you have to invest in to get to that.
It's like childbirth, I guess.
Yes, I've never had a child, but I will say I've heard that it's quite momentous. But I will tell you that opening a restaurant is very momentous as well. But I will say that to me, one of the things that keeps me going is the people that I work with and the people that come to our restaurants. Because, we're hospitality people through and through. Yeah, we're chefs, but we cook because we like to see people having a great time, enjoying the food, saying, oh my God, this is the best thing I've ever eaten. Or I remember when I came here for my birthday and it was just like one of the greatest meals, or whatever it is. That's the hospitality that we all thrive on. And during COVID, I was deprived of hospitality because we had to make food and put it in a box and put the box in a bag and staple the bag up and put it on a shelf that somebody came to the other side of the door and took off the shelf. And I said in day one, I can't do this. This is not hospitality. This is not what we do. And I would go home every day just so incredibly sad because I don't make food to put it in a box. I put it on a plate so that I can serve it to somebody so that I can see their reaction to it. That's why all of our restaurants have all open kitchens, because I want the cooks to all see people loving their food and have the opportunity to come back to the kitchen and say yes, I loved it, or whatever. Just smile at the cooks. It's just such a great thing. So we're all hospitality people, but we also, I'll sort of go to something that Beverly said earlier. It sort of all starts with hospitality for our staff. So if we treat our staff well and see them progressing and loving their work and creating an environment in which they can thrive, then that takes me to work every day, because I love seeing our staff thrive too. So if happy guests and happy staff is what takes me to work every day, and I was deprived of it for a while during COVID, and I will say that those were the saddest days of my life. So I know exactly what keeps me going, and it's the same thing that kept me going all through the first few years of our restaurant.
I'm addicted to growth, and growth doesn't necessarily mean like quantity, but growth personally. And I think doing hard things like creating solutions for things is really powerful. And I think we all are here because we love people. We love, this is a totally different atmosphere than being on a Zoom call. a Zoom panel is because we can read your faces and you can see the expressions and the heart and the soul. And I think that's what a restaurant is. We make people happy. And I think that's very valuable in society. Super important, just as important as being, a medical doctor or, a service industry. We're here for you to make you happy and have great memories. And to live a good life and eat great food, and growth in the hospitality industry keeps you growing. You constantly can do better and learn new things. And it's wonderful to see and mentor growth for other people. And that keeps me going.
I remember years ago, I did a story about the top sous chefs in Chicago, and people nominated them, and I went and I interviewed each one. And I went to this restaurant called Butter, and I interviewed the sous chef there, and the chef was there, and they're telling me, sometimes they lug these giant stock pots upstairs, and they work 15-hour days. I said, but why? Why do you do it? And they say, see that balcony over there? So they pointed to a balcony. Let's say that's what. When we send out a dish, we poke our little noses over the balcony, and just to watch the look on someone's face when they bite it. And I was like, who damaged you that you need to make people happy like this? But I hear this over and over. I want to make people happy. I want to take that hungry person and make them not hungry. And I think that's so beautiful and so generous that you guys would work so hard for that. And we only have a few more minutes, but I wanted to ask you one thing. This is a real consumery, newspapery thing. If a two-top walked into your restaurant and they could only try enough food for two people, and you got to choose which restaurant. I know you have a bunch of them. What would you advise them to get the best meal they could get the first time they're there? Come on, sorry. You got
That's impossible.
Okay, four top. Okay, but come on, you got to try the. And don't upsell.
The most expensive thing on the menu.
Does that have the best food cost though, Rick?
we got to cover our costs. They're really going up a lot right now. So you got to order the most expensive thing. I have no idea what to answer to this.
I didn't prepare. This is a total surprise question.
I'm going to say that if you come to Frontera,
at your restaurant, if you were saying, okay, here are my best ones. You got to try this tonight.
What's on the Frontera menu that's been on there since
okay,
day one?
so we have this section. It's not a whole section, but they're dropped into all the sections. But on the 30th anniversary of Frontera, my wife and I sat down at a table and said we're going to order everything that's been on the menu since day one because it seemed like the right thing. But it was too many things and we couldn't order. But I'm just going to say that I will just pick from that. Okay, so if it's a two-top, then it sounds really pedestrian, but I would have you get guacamole because we make classic guacamole before ever. See, you did it. Okay, thank you. And then we make little Mexico City-style quesadillas that are made from heirloom corn masa and filled with epazote and melted cheese, and they're fried. And that is still one of my guilty pleasures. I will take one in the back office and eat it by my whole order by myself. Okay, so I would tell you, you should do that same exact thing. And then we have a changing menu, but we always have different kinds of mole on there, and that's really our thing is that we have really great mole. And so I would tell you to get one or two of the mole dishes that are on the menu. And
to drink?
Maybe some, I'm sorry?
A margarita.
To drink? I don't really get into telling people what to drink, but I will tell you probably if you come to our restaurant, you see nothing but margaritas when you walk in the door, and so you will probably choose to start with that. I would take you into wine after that because most people don't know, and our staff is really good about pairing wine with our food, which is not, you don't pair it the same way you would European food, so we put a lot of effort into that kind of training. So yeah, I would say, I would give you a glass of wine to go with one of those main courses, one of those moles, because we pride ourselves in being able to do a good job like that. And then chocolate pecan pie for dessert because it's been on the menu for all 35 years. But that's a no-brainer. You got to have that. Okay.
Did you write that down?
Right.
Okay. All right,
I'll say
ladies.
real quick, I did a cooking demo after you once. I think it was at like the restaurant show, and you had been on stage and you had demoed one of your margaritas, and you left it underneath on the stage, and I chugged that so fast when I got up there, and I was like, yes. So even having sat there for 20 minutes is the best margarita I ever had.
I remember that when you came on right after I did. I remember that. And you were doing something from Duck, Duck, Goat.
Yes.
Yes,
It's always
I
fun to demo DuckDuckGo stuff.
I'm glad to have been of service.
That's hard. I mean, I think in a similar fashion, going back to the beginning, like over 12 years ago, I actually just did a video yesterday for Lexus where we were supposed to pick the dish. It was called The Dish That Made You, and they had a bunch of chefs come and make the dish that sort of was their thing. And I was like, I'm just going to do the sautéed green beans. And they looked at me like I was crazy. They're like, you're going to do sautéed green beans as the center of your whole culinary existence? And I was like, yeah, I am. So it's something that's been on the menu for over 12 years. It's green beans sautéed with shallots, cashews, and it's this fish sauce vinaigrette that people come in, they're like, how did you make green beans taste so good? And we used to give out the recipe all the time, and we still do, but now we started a whole package good lines based on this sauce that we put in a bottle. Now we sell it all over the country. So it's one of those things where it seems so simple, but you have to get the green beans when you come to the Girl and the Goat for the first time. And then probably the pig face. It's been on the menu forever. People in LA are really upset that we don't have the pig face on the LA Girl and the Goat menu. And I said, because we don't have a farm that has 80, Slagle Farm here used to say, they're like, we have 80 pig heads. Do you have anything you want to do with 80 pig heads every week? And I was like, yeah, we'll take those. We made the pig face, and it's been on the menu ever since. And we still get all of these pig heads dropped off by the whole Slagle family that comes to our restaurant every week bringing them. So yeah, you have to get those two things. And just drink one of everything.
Nice. Green beans, pig face. Okay.
Well, I used to say bean bread, but we took that off the menu. So we kind of, again, as part of the redesign coming to Parachute, streamlining things, and it didn't make sense. It was super labor intensive, but also the food is wonderfully going back. It's a little bit more deeper into the Korean roots than being Korean-ish. It's more Korean, but it's still Parachute. So I would recommend you come and get the yukhae, which is a Korean beef tartare that we use at Slagle Farm, and then top it off with sturgeon caviar. And I would have, or maybe some of the fresh hue, which is the Korean word for sashimi that comes in fresh from Japan, and with the gomtae seaweed, which is really special, like unique seaweed that comes from like the southwest coast of Korea that a lot of people haven't tried. It tastes like white truffle with the strawberry chojang. And then I would have you go with something fried, but I really love our hemopajang. Every Korean restaurant has a seafood pancake, but ours is wonderfully crispy and focuses in just light enough just to coat all the green onions. The favorite part of the hemopajang is the different variety of onions in there. So there's Korean chives, Chinese chives, and scallions and onions, and I would have you do that, and then I would have you go into, we have our panchan.
I'm so hungry.
Yes. Every main course will have our house kimchi now. Like, I'm so proud of our house kimchi because.
That's what I want to ask. Do you have? So you said in your house growing up you had that third refrigerator that was all kimchi. How big is your cooler of kimchi?
Well, every time I do a batch of kimchi, it's a 50-pound batch, and so 50 pounds is a lot. And we do that about every other week, and then we have 2 other like panchan or side dishes. It could be pickled, it could be fresh. It just depends on the season, and we get those mostly from the farmers. So it depends on what's in season, and then we cook our rice to order in a stone pot. And you can, and I would say it's so hard to decide, but I would, if you're a little bit more adventurous, like I think our mackerel on the bichotang grill is really amazing, and pair that with the yukgaejang beef soup, the spicy beef soup, because that again brings me home with the spicy soups that my mom used to make. Or I would just say do the 30-day aged Slagle bulgogi, which is amazing. That's marinated and it just gets better as it sits there for 2 weeks, and then finish off with the pat bingsu.
Hot pink
You
soup
just
with
said the
dessert.
whole menu. You said the whole menu.
I know.
Wait, what are we drinking? What are we drinking?
That was the
when we
whole
come in?
menu. Sorry, I just named the whole menu. Actually, and then I would say go to Wherewithall, and you'll never get the same thing. Every week is different.
Right. So the next door restaurant will think.
I just named the whole menu. Sorry.
That was a little different than green beans and pig face. But I want to say, if people can't get that Bing bread at your restaurant anymore, how could they make it at home?
hello. You got a Bing Bread book. It has
She'll
all
be
of our
signing
secrets.
that book, the recipe
Yes.
for that famous bread tonight.
So it has all the secrets, no secrets barred. And you will realize why it's not on the menu anymore.
It's really, but
3 days
and actually,
later, you can
everyone
enjoy it.
has a book that they will be signing after this, right after we have some audience questions. And all right, oh, they're all lined up. Look how organized that is. All right, we're going to use my mic for audience questions. Here we go. Don't forget the holidays are coming up, and a signed book by one of these or all of these wonderful chefs would be a wonderful holiday present.
Yes, so.
Look, I like that little insert.
Thank you. Thank you for the time. Yeah. So as I was listening to you talk about COVID and how you responded to that, and then growing your industry, your restaurant kingdoms, I was reminded of a Ken Burns quote I heard earlier, that part of growth is delegating without losing the thing. And so delegating is something I struggle with. And so I'm curious how you delegated without losing the thing. Your restaurants, COVID. Yeah, thank you.
I think delegating was the hardest thing that I ever learned how to do, but the only step that takes you to being able to open more than one restaurant or have more than one thing that you're doing. I think there's a chef that said to me once, he said, opening the second restaurant is the hardest because it's like your first time stepping out of the first one. And then after that, he was like, then he said it just gets easier and easier, which that part was full of crap. But I think finally realizing that finding the people around to surround yourself with that you can trust to do things and letting them do things and giving them the power to do things themselves and make decisions themselves is the only way that you're going to be able to succeed. Even something, someone said they came into one of my restaurants the other day and they had an allergy and the server was able to just change the menu and was empowered to make some decisions and help them through it. And something as simple as that, but they were like, it was so great to see that your team member was able to make these decisions on their own and they didn't have to, reach out to you and things like that. I think it takes a lot of time because you are so used to doing everything yourself. But once you start to delegate and realize that people around you are amazing too and you've surrounded yourself with these amazing people, then it takes this huge stress off of you. And it's when you get there, it's great.
Well, and like Beverly said, if you're really into the growth of your team, then delegating is the thing you want to do because if you don't ever delegate the stuff, if you try to keep a really tight rein, then they'll never grow. And I know that with some people, and you could imagine that they make decisions that are not like your decisions, but you have to be willing to support them in those decisions and maybe take them to the side and say, well, maybe I would have thought of this or that, but you don't do it in front of anybody. You do it, separately, just as a way of kind of helping them grow to see that there are different ways that you might want to approach these things. But to me, that's one of the most enjoyable parts of my job, to see people really thrive because you've given them the power to make the decisions and they've done a good job with it.
I think promoting from within has been a huge lesson for me. I love people who has from starting from the entry level, like my general manager, Jose, he's been with us since he started as an SA, and now he's our general manager because he knows every single part of my business. Yeah. And there's trust that's built there. I've had experiences getting someone out of haste, from outside, and they haven't really learned our culture. So I think it's investing in your people and giving them a chance. Maybe at first you're like, oh, it might be hard for them, but give them some belief. If they've been with you for a while, give them a chance to grow.
I always like to say, I believe in you. And that is, sometimes they don't believe in themselves, and you've said, we would like to put you in this position, and they're like, I don't know if I can do that. And if I say, no, you have everything you need to do that job, it's that trust and that belief in people, oftentimes that makes them rise to that occasion. And I love that kind of thing, because oftentimes I look at them when I say, no, I know you can do this job, I know you've got everything that you need to do this job and thrive in it, and they're just looking at it like, I don't know. But they do it. That's the whole thing.
I would really like to know what you eat when you come home from work, because you're making wonderful
Kimchi
food.
fried rice. I already
Yes.
said it.
your mouth.
I said it all out today because I was getting home late tonight after this, and I set out everything. I didn't even think about Beverly being here, but I set out everything to make kimchi fried rice for myself. We eat in our restaurants, in all of our restaurants every week as guests, because I just have this need to see everything from the guest side, so that I sit down and I'm waited on just like anybody else would be waited on. They would tell you that's not true, but I'm going to say, yeah. Those words coming out of my mouth, I thought that's really a lie, isn't it? Okay, so but I love to cook at home too, and so I have some things that are really fast, like kimchi fried rice. That is one of our go-to things in our house. But we cook a family dinner once a week where everybody gets together. My son-in-law, and who's a great cook, and daughter and granddaughter, and we have and we invite people over, and we just have everybody contributes to that one, and I love that kind of stuff. I just like sharing food with people and doing it in a leisurely way. But then lots of times, like tonight, it'll just be something really fast. What do you cook?
I eat goldfish crackers.
Fish crackers.
Dipped in ranch dressing. But I have a 6-year-old who's a very picky eater, and it's like, people are like, oh, your son must eat the most amazing things. I'm like, he's still 6 years old, you guys. But we went out to eat the other night, and he was taking some steamed broccoli that we got, and there was salt, pepper, oregano, and red pepper flakes on the table, and he mixed it together and was making this little dip for his broccoli. So last night we steamed some vegetables, and I put out some different spice mixes and salt, and like had him kind of mix and try that. So I think for me, cooking at home, what I do is like trying to get him to try new things. Usually it's just rice and soy sauce, which makes me happy anyways. But I think that's sort of like this, I'm kind of trying to get him to grow along with me and move beyond our goldfish cracker snacks.
You got 3 kids. What do you make?
Oh my God. It's, you would think that like with chef kids, like our second one will only eat pasta with butter and rice with the kim seaweed. He's very particular. I think it's his way of defiance of like, I have a love-hate relationship with the thing that you love the most. And the first one, I've been rinsing kimchi for him since he was 3, so he now loves Korean food and all kind of like Asian food. And yeah, when you come at 1 or 2 o'clock at home, like at night, and you open your fridge and you're starving, kimchi fried rice. Just do sesame oil, stir that, put an egg in there, get some. You can even do the microwave rice, and then pop that on there, chop up some kimchi, and it's like the bomb. It's the bomb. And I have to say, sometimes I do ramen. I know, it's like I did ramen right before I got here. I was like, I'm starving. What's the fastest thing I can make right now? Ramen and kimchi. But actually, my husband's part Ukrainian, and we've been really exploring Ukrainian cuisine at home, and borscht is my new favorite thing. I love borscht, yeah. So it's anything, that's like a comfort food right there, yeah.
Okay. First, I'll say I hate flying out of O'Hare. The only thing I love is going to Frontera. It makes it worth it every time I travel.
Cute!
Yes. And second, we're friends, so great minds think alike. I was going to ask you, so this will be quick, what did you eat for dinner last night? I think you already kind of touched on it, though. This can be a quick one.
I can't even remember where I was last night. I gotta figure this out. Where was I last night? Somebody else answer. I gotta figure out where I was last night. I think I was in.
So I hosted like an event at Wherewithall. It was these 8 amazing chefs came together. And then I realized at like 9 o'clock that I hadn't eaten a thing because I was hosting this whole event. And I go to the back, I was like, is there any food left? They're like, no. But Chef Carrie Nahabidian we had some leftover pavés. It was this potato and caramelized onion and goat cheese pave. And I just stuck 3 cold into my mouth. And I was like, I'm so appreciative. This is so delicious, even though it's cold.
You're answering because
I already said
Carrie from Brindille.
I'm more so looking forward to tomorrow night. I'm cooking with Joe Flam and Shota.
Yeah.
We cooked together a couple weeks ago. And we all brought enough for all of us to eat as well. So you just get to stand around while everybody's eating and just kind of join in. So I'm looking forward to tomorrow night's meal of eating their food.
I ate leftovers I honestly, I did. I couldn't figure it out because we have a restaurant at Disney Springs in Orlando, and I was flying in from there. And I was talking to my wife on the way in from the airport, and I said, oh, it's like I made it for brunch last Sunday. It's like a vegetable strata thing. And I said, oh, we've got that. I'll just heat that up when I get home. So that's what I had. It was really good.
Your leftovers are different than other people's leftovers, probably.
Okay, so thanks. I have 10 questions for each of you, and but I know I have to pick one. So you mentioned the restaurant show, and it occurred to me that some years back I had a sort of tangential connection with the Restaurant Association. And you all have talked about some really great things you're doing politically and sort of in society. And it struck me at the time that the Restaurant Association is a really thoroughly reactionary and backward organization, it struck me as, in terms of who they presented to speak, the public speakers and whatnot. And even the way the show is organized, it's very consumer focused and kind of on a lowest common denominator kind of thing. And I guess my question is, why is that? How does that change? How do you see the work you're doing in relationship to the overall context of the restaurant business, in a sense?
I will just say that the National Restaurant Association does some really great work, but it tends to be more oriented toward the big chains and that sort of stuff. We're all independent restaurateurs. And during COVID, we started the Independent Restaurant Coalition just to represent the independent restaurants. And that is growing now. It's not as big as the National Restaurant Association by any means, and it has lots of struggles because the big chains can afford to, invest in the National Restaurant Association, where independents, we can't really afford to invest very much. But it's a really beautiful grassroots organization that has a lot of real big stars in it, because lots of the big stars in the restaurant world are independent restaurants, not the big chains. So I'm very proud that we were able to actually do that, develop a lobbying organization. The Restaurant Association and the National Restaurant Show doesn't necessarily represent independent restaurants and chefs very well, but we go there, and who they get to be the chefs doing the demos there is all the independent restaurant chefs, because we're the ones that are sort of on the cutting edge, and we're the ones that are leading the charge. We support the work that they do when it matches our values and not when it doesn't. But I will say the Independent Restaurant Coalition is definitely where my heart is right now.
Well, I think, do we have time for anything more? Oh, here's Desiree. Well, I want to thank you guys for talking to us and for all your wonderful work.
I was just going to say the same thing. And thanks to Monica, too, for moderating. And thanks to all of you for coming to this evening. Now, don't forget, they'll be signing books shortly. So if you still need to purchase a book, go ahead and line up down the center. And thanks again for coming. And let's thank our chefs one more time.